Jaku and you're watching the Memo. I have the opportunity to speak to David Toua, representative from the business sector, in the dialogue that's been happening with the country's COVID response. David, thank you for coming and having this opportunity to speak with us. We are up to some new measures now that are in place. Can you just give me an idea of what's the difference now with the new measures and what happened with the first state of emergency?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thanks for this opportunity to have a word with regards to, I guess, what all of us know is a very strange year. Mm-hmm. As we move into a new period where here in the NCD the number of positive cases has risen and continues to rise, I think what I can say is that we had a practice run several months ago when the state of emergency was introduced. So we did a couple of things a few months ago which has stood us in good stead as we now actually confront a rising case of positive cases and I guess all of the activity that surrounds that.
Because the initial SOE effectively shut down businesses. How much of a challenge was that?
Well, it was a massive challenge, but to be fair to everyone involved, mm-hmm. the unknown factor was far greater then than it is now. I mean, despite the fact that there's still a very much unknown thing, there's no cure for this thing, and all over the globe people are still trying to work it out. But I thought that the government and its agents did a particularly good job of instituting measures that prevented an immediate spread of something that we didn't know anything about. So shutting our borders and then introducing restrictions, I think was necessary for a number of reasons. Firstly, to protect our borders in the first instance. You know, as far as we're concerned, this is a foreign agent that's come here. So as early as late January, February, when our international borders were closed, great move. The other precautionary stuff was probably there because we really didn't know what to expect, so we were exercising caution in the face of uncertainty. You know, now that we have the benefit of that experience, we can look at things a little differently, and I would suggest that we need to look at things a little differently because our experience when businesses did have to shut down was that it had a severe impact not only on businesses but individuals. You know, households suddenly lost their income making opportunity. Businesses had to lay off staff. And you know, the consequences of that are quite obvious.
So what would be the priorities now for the business community?
Look, from a business community perspective, the lessons that we learned from the initial shutdown suggest to us that we're in a pretty good position to self-regulate when it comes to the appropriate behaviours to exercise when restrictions have to be put in place. So my advocacy would be to the government, let business behave responsibly. Let business set its own rules within its structures around self-distancing and hygiene protocols, etc., and allow us to keep the economy, the wheels of the economy turning.
Yeah, because I guess then that also allows each sector to be able to adapt to do its own changes and.
Yeah, you know, and I see examples of it wherever I go in the business community. You know, whether it's an office scenario or a social club scenario or a shopping centre, everyone is making great efforts to ensure that there is social distancing, there is appropriate hygiene, there is appropriate signage in terms of advising patrons. Everyone's doing a good job.
David, despite the immediate impacts that we had with the SOE and the shutdown, business sector was very proactive in convincing the government that you needed to keep the wheels turning somehow. Can you just elaborate on how that happened?
Yeah, look, the immediate effect was that severe that a lot of us in business thought, well, if we keep going like this, we'll actually stop going. So what we did was we reached out, to various ministers that were involved, to the controller, and said, look, we've got some ideas that we'd like to share with you in terms of making this easier. Because at the time, there was very strict control of the border, not only the external border, but the border between each of our provinces. And, there were calls to shut down movements of ships. In fact, that's a really good example. We and the shipping industry and the company that I'm involved in, Steamships, played a major part in putting together a contactless port call procedure whereby we demonstrated that ships could still call, cargo could still get cleared with very minimal, if no contact at all, between human beings from the ships and on shore, and that it was as safe a procedure as you could possibly want. They were convinced about that, and what we did was we averted situations where ships had to turn back without delivering cargo. And the knock-on effect of that is that people were able to get much needed supply in a timely fashion. I mean, if you go to somewhere like some of the islands, New Island, Kavieng, where you get one ship call a month, if it had been turned back, all of a sudden, essential goods such as rice and other foods, etc., and medical supplies would have been delayed by another 2 months or more. So, that was a very good example. The other example was business got their heads together and discussed how we could ensure a smooth carriage of goods through the Highlands region, through provinces in the Highlands region. That's still a work in progress, but we were able to put down some positive, recommendations in terms of how that might work so that we address the health consequence while still keeping everyone safe and ensuring that economic activity continued.
Some of these new measures and restrictions, though, will continue, and I guess it's just adapting it to how you go forward in business.
Well, it is, let's hope things don't spiral out of control. Let's hope that things do get contained through the isolation, through the social distancing, etc., and the hygiene conditions that are being applied. But should things escalate, we as business will monitor. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all people and we want to be kept safe ourselves. And responsible business does not put its employees in harm's way on purpose. So, yes, we will adapt, and we're confident we can adapt.
And that was David Toua giving us an update on the government and business dialogue that's been happening with the country's COVID response. We'll have more updates with me, Hannah Jaku, on the Memo.